Hello and welcome to the Indiana Lawyer Podcast, your source for news and Hoosier law, brought to you by Taft. I'm Alexis Shrake, Indiana Lawyer Reporter, and your host this week. This is a special edition of the podcast. It is our 75th episode, and our 3-year anniversary is on November 3rd. So to celebrate, you can email me what topics you would like to hear us cover. My email is ashrake@ibj.com. That is ASHRAKE@ibj.com. I have with me today in the studio Indiana Lawyer Reporter Maura Johnson. Last week, Maura was in Delphi for the high-profile double murder trial of 2 teenage girls. So to start, Maura, can you give us a little overview of the case for our listeners that haven't been following it, don't know much about it?
Yeah, so in February 2017, 2 teenage girls, Liberty German and Abigail Williams, were kind of spending the day together as friends in the city of Delphi, which is about an hour or so northwest of Indianapolis. And it was a beautiful day that day. They were exploring kind of the trails in Delphi, and they wound up going missing and then were found murdered. And so this case has kind of been, developing obviously over the years, but it wasn't until October 2022 that they officially arrested a suspect in the case, Richard Allen. And so this case is finally going to trial. So they started the trial in mid-October, and it's kind of just been proceeding until then. Jurors were picked out of Allen County and then were transported to Carroll County, which is where the crimes happened as well. So yeah, that's kind of a general gist of it.
Thank you. So what was it like for you to be in the courtroom? It was at the Carroll County Courthouse, correct?
Correct, yeah. And so I personally never, covered a trial, especially not one on this scale. So this was definitely new to me and quite an eye-opening experience. Obviously, being in Carroll County, in Delphi specifically, it's a very small town. So it was definitely kind of a unique experience to be there. And, I didn't see a ton of community members while I was out there, but there's definitely evidence that the girls are being thought of. There were on the light posts, there were ribbons, purple and blue ribbons, those colors have kind of been associated with the girls since the crimes happened. So yeah, but being in the courtroom specifically was really interesting, just because it is a small courtroom. It's Delphi, so it's fairly small, but pretty much packed every day that I know of so far. So, and this has brought in kind of national media attention as well, which has been super interesting. Again, going back to just it being a smaller community and the state of Indiana in general. I don't think we've really seen anything like this to this scale, so it's been surprising. And then kind of the other, I guess, side of it is, this happened in 2017 and no arrests were made until 2022. So it's been kind of a long time coming. Yeah, it's just been interesting to kind of see the case develop up until now and to finally kind of see, the chance for it to kind of be discussed in court has been unique. And I'm sure all sides of the case are very grateful for that.
So yeah, while you were there, I know we talked about this a little bit earlier, you weren't really seeing community members, but what was sort of the tone of the people that were there? You mentioned a lot of national media following this as well.
Yeah, so, and I kind of tried to speak to community members prior to coming to trial just because I was kind of curious about their thoughts. And they're definitely, I would say, protective of their community, which is completely understandable, especially given what happened in the case. But it was also interesting to talk to people from national outlets who are coming to Indiana. Being, an Indiana native, it's kind of odd to see, these national outlets from New York and, all these different places coming in to cover this. And so, yeah, it was, a lot of people that I've spoken to, not only at the trial, but kind of in the months leading up to it. It's just garnered such a wide interest. I think just because of the nature of the case. I think probably just the fact that it's taken so long to kind of get here is definitely interesting. I also talked to, local media and some people not only just in general from around the state, but also local to like Delphi, Lafayette, Carroll County in general. And there's definitely from what I observed, a strong sense of community with, those reporters as well, as they want to ensure that, they're covering this case, they're doing it justice, and they're, obviously very protective of their place, of their home. So that was really a good thing to see, of course, but also just, I guess, that kind of contrast. Not that, none of the national media outlets have been, awful about it, but it's just interesting to see kind of the kind of small community garnered this much attention.
Yeah, and I know I've seen it online of people like sleeping out, waiting overnight to be there for the trial. Did you see that or talk to the people that were doing that?
I did, yeah. So the couple days that I was there, I did not run into any, members of the public who were there just kind of their own accord. A lot of the people that I spoke to who were like kind of waiting at the doors of the courthouse were people with, independent kind of blogs or like YouTube channels, which is really interesting. So they're not technically like, formal media, but they also wanted their opportunity to be in the courtroom for this, as well as, so something that local media has kind of done, and national media to an extent, but especially local media has done, is kind of come together to create a coalition that we essentially kind of rotate who gets to be in the courtroom at whatever time. And so those who either aren't a part of the coalition, or maybe that day they wanted to be there but didn't get chosen to be, the person with the press pass that day, they were also camping out. So it was definitely interesting. I think the people I spoke to said they had arrived at like maybe 5 or 6 in the morning, which I also heard that, as the trial started, it was much earlier than that. So it was definitely interesting to see, especially as it's getting colder, people staying out and kind of dealing with the elements to be able to get in.
So you've been covering this case a little bit differently than other reporters have. Can you kind of explain to us how you've been looking at the case?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started looking at this case, from the specific angle I've kind of been working with. First kind of started it back in April or May-ish. And basically kind of the angle that I've been coming at has been looking at the relationship between the court and, the proceedings and the media. So back in February 2023, it was announced that the Indiana Supreme Court would be making an amendment to Rule 2.17 of the Indiana Code of Judicial Conduct, which would basically allow trial court judges to be the one to decide whether or not cameras could be in courtrooms during trial proceedings. So that was kind of the angle I was coming at it, was, what's going to happen, especially before the trial happened, what's going to happen in this case? Is the judge going to allow cameras in? There's obviously, I would say, kind of pros and cons to that, but it was just kind of up in the air. The local media was kind of just waiting to see what would happen. Another interesting angle to that was Judge Gull, who is the judge presiding over this case, was a part of a pilot project for this potential amendment, now official amendment. So she actually did work with, this cameras in the courtroom kind of initiative, but for this case specifically has not been too keen on letting cameras in. It was kind of hit or miss up until about October of last year. And since then, pretty consistently, there's not been cameras allowed in the courtroom. And so I think a lot of people were just kind of hoping that there would be an opportunity to have cameras in, but that's not the case. So instead, it's been interesting to see local media, or media in general, pivot into, okay, no electronics are allowed in the courtroom. So how do we go about this? And it's definitely, scaled back to kind of the traditional, we're just writing everything down and we're going to just have to kind of do it to the best of our abilities just with pen and paper.
And so they're kind of doing the pool reporting thing is what they've initiated into this case. And you got to do that on Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
What was that like for you? Because you go and you're not allowed to have your phone. You just have your pen and paper, and then you have to share those notes. What was that experience like for you?
I definitely felt the pressure, especially since I hadn't really done this before, and it was my first day in court for this case specifically. So it was definitely nerve-wracking just to know that I had to, follow this case or the proceedings so closely, and I was kind of thinking about, like, how do I, write my notes so that people understand it? Is my handwriting legible enough? Which I think it was. I haven't, gotten any negative feedback, I guess. But yeah, it was a very interesting experience. Good overall. Like, it was positive, and it was also nice to have another pool reporter who was doing the same thing. So it was very much a collaborative thing to do, where if I miss something or if they miss something, we could, interject and say, hey, this happened. And so it was very much like we were able to build kind of a cohesive summary of what happened for those who couldn't be in the courtroom at the time.
And you'll have a story, our next print edition, on this experience and how the media is interacting, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I'll kind of look at definitely how kind of outside outlets are interacting with it, national, and then also kind of these more independent outlets that are not necessarily, quote, traditional media, but still are following the case and are reporting on it as we are as kind of formal media outlets.
Mm-hmm. And when is the trial scheduled to conclude?
So it is allotted until mid-November. I don't quite know if it'll last that long. It started in mid-October with the jury selection, and it's expected to end by mid-November. So I'm not sure if it'll go that long, but yeah, that's kind of the time frame that they have.
Mm-hmm. And so far, it's just been the state's witnesses that have been, is that right? What you're telling me
I
earlier?
believe so, yes. The 2 days that I was present in court, it was the state witnesses that were speaking, but they've also had, I believe as part of state witnesses, the family testify. But yeah, every day that I was in there, we kind of went in without knowing exactly what was going to be presented. So that can change. But from what I saw and what I've seen so far, it's been state witnesses.
Alrighty. Well, is there anything else that you kind of want to add about, this experience in the case that I didn't think to ask you?
Yeah, I think, as I've been looking at this from the angle of kind of like the media, whether or not they're going to have access, I think it's interesting to kind of see the scope of the, public interest in this case. And I think while it's valid to have public interest, and I think media interest is obviously a part of that, I think what everybody involved should remember is who this case is about, and it's about these 2 young girls. It's just at the heart of it, I think it can be difficult to kind of remember that as you're shuffling through, court documents, and it's, and seeing all of this stuff that's being posted out there. But I do think, yeah, it's just important to remember the victims and that their families are still here grieving, and that they, deserve that time in court to hopefully have justice served in whatever way it's supposed to kind of happen.
Alrighty, so that'll do for this week's interview. Maura, thank you again for joining me today. And to our listeners, stick around after our sponsor break to hear this week's headlines.
Taft, today's modern law firm. At Taft, we cultivate a highly respectful, transparent workplace that fosters creativity, teamwork, inclusion, and diversity. We couple our culture with a client-first approach, rewarding lawyers who understand their clients' goals and work to deliver success. Taft, the modern law firm. To learn more, visit taftlaw.com.
Welcome back from the sponsor break. Managing Editor Daniel Carson and reporter Maura Johnson and I are here to give you the rundown on the latest legal news. So let's get started. Today is Wednesday, October 30th, 2024, and these are your headlines. To start, I was at the State House last week covering the Indiana Judicial Nominating Commission interviews of 7 candidates for the Indiana Court of Appeals Judge Terry Crone's spot on the bench. Anna Mandula, a partner at Lewis, Brisbois, Biscard and Smith LLP, St. Joseph Superior Court Judge Stephanie Steele, and St. Joseph Superior Court Judge Stephen Scheele have been selected as the 3 finalists for the pending vacancy. Once the list of the 3 finalists is officially submitted to Governor Eric Holcomb, he will have 60 days to select one of them to succeed Crone, who is retiring after 20 years on the appellate bench. Crone will officially retire on November 5th and will have a retirement ceremony on November 4th. Other applicants who interviewed with the commission for Crone's job were Allen Superior Court Judge Andrew Williams, A. Elizabeth Underwood, LaPorte Superior Court Judge Jamie Oss, and Lake Superior Court Judge Gina Jones. Daniel, you have news on a new magistrate judge in the northern part of the state. What can you tell us?
The U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Indiana has selected one of the district's law clerks to replace a retiring magistrate judge next year in the court's Fort Wayne division. Andrew Teal will succeed Magistrate Judge Susan Collins upon her retirement in July 2025, according to a news release posted on the court's website. Collins has 37 years of public service, including nearly a decade as a magistrate judge. According to the court, Teal is a graduate of Indiana University Bloomington and the College of William and Mary Law School. His 2-decade legal career has been spent largely in federal court, both in private practice with Haller Colvin PC as an associate and as a partner, as well as in the public sector as a career law clerk for Chief Judge Holly Brady since April 2019. Immediately after law school, Teal held the position of associate at the insurance defense firm of Steele, Ulmschneider, and Malloy, LLP, until April 2012, and he served as Associate General Counsel for MedPro Group from September 2018 through April 2019. During his tenure, Teal was a member of the Allen County and Indiana State Bar Association, serving as president of the ACBA in 2023 and 2024. He is also a member of the Community Advisory Board for the Fort Wayne Sexual Assault Treatment Center. Teal's appointment will be effective upon the retirement of Collins and completion of required IRS and FBI background investigations, according to the court.
Thanks, Daniel. Moving on to Maura, tell us about a recent lawsuit against Indiana University.
2 former Indiana University men's basketball players are suing the school for reportedly doing nothing to stop the alleged sexual abuse they received from former team physician Dr. Brad Bomba Sr. The former players say Bomba's repeated, unnecessary rectal exams constitute sexual abuse. The lawsuit was filed on October 15th in the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Indiana by former players Harris Muzenovich and Charlie Miller. The complaint states, quote, "Despite its knowledge of these routine, pervasive, repeated sexual assaults, IU systematically mishandled and turned a blind eye to Hoosier men's basketball players' complaints of Dr. Bomba Sr.'s sexual misconduct, contrary to federal regulations. This lawsuit was expected because the university recently received notice of potential litigation through a letter from legal counsel representing a student athlete. The university announced in September that it had hired international law firm Jones Day to conduct an independent review of the allegations. In announcing the investigation, IU said, quote, "This is a fully independent and comprehensive investigation that will follow the facts. Indiana University will abide by its findings and take any warranted actions." Bomba was the team's physician for nearly 30 years and served as the U.S. Olympic men's basketball team physician under Coach Bob Knight. Bomba could not immediately be reached for comment. The punitive class action lawsuit is seeking unspecified money damages on behalf of all players who experienced the abuse during their time at IU. Muzenovich said in written remarks, quote, "I'm standing up for all student athletes who have suffered abuse. I hope that more of our former teammates will speak out and share their stories publicly." Miller added, quote, "I will never understand why IU leadership did nothing to protect us from what I now understand was sexual abuse." Muzenovich played at Jolie Junior College from 1993 to 1995 before transferring to IU to play for the Hoosiers from 1995 to 1997. Miller was selected as a McDonald's All-American and Florida's Gatorade Player of the Year in 1994 before playing for IU from 1994 to 1998. Both players went on to play professionally in Europe.
Thanks, Maura. Sticking with recent lawsuits, the Office of the Attorney General filed a lawsuit against an Indianapolis home improvement contractor for allegedly scamming residents. Hank Eversole, does business as All Services Construction and Nationwide Construction, according to court documents. The lawsuit filed with Marion Superior Court alleges he has violated the Indiana Deceptive Consumer Sales Act and the Indiana Home Improvement Act. According to the complaint, Eversole didn't complete 2 home improvement projects. Consumers had paid down payments for the projects but never received refunds. The state is seeking a permanent injunction to enjoin Eversole from owning, operating, or managing any Indiana company or business engaged in providing home improvements until he has paid all restitution, costs, and penalties. The state also wants a permanent injunction preventing Hank from entering into home improvement contract without first obtaining a surety bond in the amount of $75,000. Since one consumer obtained a small claims judgment against Eversole, the state is seeking restitution of $19,000 for an older couple Eversole was supposed to do work on their garage. The state is also seeking $5,000 per violation for civil penalties and $500 per violation for deceptive acts. Contact information for Eversole or the companies could not be found. Eversole does not have an attorney listed on my case at this time. Quote, Hoosiers looking to make repairs or improvements to their homes shouldn't have to worry about being shafted by unscrupulous contractors, Indiana Attorney General Tadakita said in a news release. We will continue working to hold accountable any contractor trying to take advantage of hardworking homeowners in this manner, end quote. Back to Maura for news about a lawsuit against an IndyCar driver's auto dealership.
An Indianapolis area-based automobile dealer has been sued for allegedly breaching a contract and failing to return $1.2 million to the plaintiff. The plaintiff, Montana-based IRB Capital Holdings, LLC, filed the suit on October 3rd in the Indiana Commercial Court and Hamilton Superior Court, claiming defendant Graham Rahal Performance, LLC, failed to deliver to IRB a limited edition Mercedes Project One vehicle. Graham Rahal is described in the lawsuit as an automobile dealer and broker of limited edition performance vehicles. The company's general counsel said in an email to Indiana Lawyer that it, quote, denies the allegations in the complaint and intends to vigorously defend itself. According to the lawsuit, IRB entered into a purchase agreement with the Rahal Company on March 19, 2021. The purchase agreement shows IRB paid the Rahal Company a deposit of $1.2 million for the allocation and delivery of the Mercedes, but the suit claims Rahal didn't secure the vehicle and therefore had no plan to deliver it to IRB. IRB claims any reasonable time frame for the dealer to provide the vehicle has passed, and in March 2024, the company requested the return of its $1.2 million deposit. Text messages between the two parties show IRB repeatedly asking Rahal when the money would be returned, with the defendant saying they'd update the plaintiff when the money became available. As of the date of the court filing, the $1.2 million has not been returned, the lawsuit alleges. IRB is suing for a breach of contract, unjust enrichment, and rescission. They're asking for the $1.2 million to be returned in addition to monetary damages related to the case.
Thanks, Maura. A local attorney has resigned from the bar following misconduct allegations. What can you tell us, Daniel?
An Indianapolis attorney resigned from the Indiana bar after the Supreme Court Disciplinary Commission filed a professional misconduct complaint against him, with allegations that he failed to file paperwork in a timely manner and was non-responsive to clients in 3 separate immigration-related cases. In one case, the commission noted that the untimely filing of paperwork resulted in a Guatemalan family no longer being able to affirmatively pursue asylum, and the client having to defend himself against deportation as well. The Indiana Supreme Court issued the order October 11th, accepting Grady Ray's resignation effective immediately. Ray was admitted to the bar in 1998. Ray did not immediately respond to Indiana lawyers' phone and email messages seeking comment. According to the Disciplinary Commission's complaint, one case involved a Guatemalan man, his wife, and young daughter who entered the United States on March 2, 2021. The family immediately had asked for asylum based on a fear of persecution in their home country of Guatemala. The man met with Ray's assistant in April 2021 to complete the necessary asylum paperwork. Ray was not present during the meeting, with all of the main interactions taking place with the assistant, according to the complaint. In January 2023, the assistant told the man that Ray could no longer represent him and recommended another attorney. The man's new attorney advised him the asylum application was not filed until June 7, 2022, 3 months beyond the March 2, 2022 deadline. In a letter to the man dated March 22, 2023, Ray indicated the COVID-19 pandemic caused issues with staffing, resulting in the hiring of additional staff. Ray's letter also indicated there were difficulties with the filing location, and the case was sent back to Ray at a time when he was ill, and a key staff member was also out of the office. The disciplinary commission staff requested Ray's complete client file. There was nothing in that file to demonstrate a problem with the man's application being returned to Ray's office due to a mailing issue. Quote, "The untimely filing meant the family could no longer affirmatively pursue asylum. The family must assert their asylum claim defensively during withholding of removal proceeding," the complaint stated, adding that the man now has to defend himself against deportation as well as demonstrate his asylum claim. Ray is ineligible to petition for reinstatement to the practice of law for 5 years from the date of the order.
Thanks, Daniel. A federal grand jury in Indianapolis has indicted a fisherwoman on charges of wire fraud and forging the signature of a federal judge on bankruptcy documents. Christy Lee Dodd, 51, first filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy with the Southern District of Indiana in 2015. A few months later, a federal bankruptcy judge issued a signed discharge order releasing Dodd from liability for any remaining debts not resolved in the bankruptcy proceedings. In 2019, Dodd filed for Chapter 13 bankruptcy with the Southern District, but later decided not to proceed and moved to have the case dismissed. According to Dodd's bankruptcy filings at the time, she had $8,198 in assets and $136,840 in liabilities. The petition was dismissed in 2022. The court did not issue a discharge order in the 2019 case, and none of her unpaid debts were resolved. In 2023, Dodd allegedly created and forged a discharge order purporting to absolve her debts related to the 2018 Chapter 13 bankruptcy petition. Authorities said Dodd emailed the fraudulent document to a financial institution purportedly proving that she had received a discharge in her 2019 bankruptcy case, so that she could obtain a line of credit to pay outstanding debts owed by the trucking business she owned. The indictment alleged the forged document was created by Dodd using the discharge order from her first bankruptcy under Chapter 7 and contained the forged signature of Judge Jeffrey J. Graham, who issued the 2015 discharge order. If convicted, Dodd faces up to 25 years in federal prison. And finally, to wrap up this week's headlines, Daniel, tell us what you are working on for our next print edition.
I'm working on a story regarding the recently unveiled federal Keeping Families Together program, which could give around 500,000 immigrants with status a path to citizenship if they are married to a U.S. citizen. The program is the subject of a lawsuit in Texas, with several states joining the suit. I'll look at what the program's impact could be in Indiana if enacted. You can read all about it in our November 6th issue.
Okay, that'll do for this week's headlines. As always, if you want more legal news, check us out at theindianalawyer.com.